So we'll get started. Just to let you guys know that this teaching over the next several weeks is brought to us by Download Youth Ministry. They're a resource that I use to help with training and things like that. So just letting you guys know that that's where it's coming from.
Those are foam things? Those are foam things?
Foam?
Foam.
He means
the screens like that?
The cards that we have at the youth desk.
Oh, no. That's Pathway. That's Pathway training. Sorry. That's Pathway training. Download Youth Ministry is just a resource tool to help youth pastors, like for systematic stuff and trainings for you guys and everything like that. So last week we talked about consistent participation, and the goal hopefully is that you guys understood that being consistent as a small group leader builds trust, but it also sets the culture within your small groups as well. So if you're consistent in your word, people in your small group will be consistent in your word. If you're consistent on making sure your small group is a safe place where people can open up and share about their struggles without judgment or anything like that, that will happen over time. And so I hope you guys took a lot away from the teaching on consistency. This week we're going to talk about what it means to have a small group that is filled with grace. Okay? A small group that is filled with grace. And so we're going to go through a couple fun questions here for you, like we did last week. So everybody knows that knows about the genie in the bottle routine. You guys ever hear about that? Like the fun game. Oh, if you found a genie in a bottle, what would you wish for in that? So if you were able to find a genie, and you can ask this genie to fill your life up with someone awesome, what would that awesome person look like?
And I thought it was going to be items. Person is so difficult.
Okay, we can do items. Let's start there. If you can have anything filled up in your bedroom, what would it be?
Oh, I know.
Go.
Can I pick two things?
One. It says one. Sorry.
So I was going to do a signed jersey if I was a Sixers. Now I'm trying to think if I'm probably going to go with a signed Matisse Bible jersey.
Okay. Sounds good.
Because I already have a Sixers JJ Redick one. It's not signed, but
Okay.
signed Matisse Bible jersey would be pretty cool.
Okay. Sounds good. Savannah or Ryan? One thing you'd like your room filled up with?
My own room?
Yes, your own room filled up with.
No, but like...
No, that's not the question. You can't ask for your own room. You gotta ask. The question is, what do you want your room filled up with? Yes, if it was your own room, hypothetically it was your own... If it was hypothetically your own room, what's one thing you would just want your whole room filled up with? Come on, you're the one who said you wanted an item. Don't complicate this. Just, for me, I would like my whole room filled up with Reese's peanut butter cups.
Well, that's multiple things.
Reese's peanut butter cups. It's one package of...
I know, but there's multiple of them.
I just said the Reese's peanut butter ones. That's it.
I said multiple jerseys.
Yeah, but your room would be filled up with the jerseys of that guy that you wanted.
There's multiple signed jerseys.
There you go. Okay.
Alright, there we go. You confused the question.
Sorry. It's all good. My bad. Alright, let's make it simpler. What would you want your fridge filled up with?
Oh.
One food. Okay, here's the thing. One food and one drink.
Can it be like a pantry food kind of?
One food or one drink, whatever you want in that fridge. Filled up.
Oh man, do I want protein powder or creatine?
One food, one drink.
I would do protein powder. If I didn't have to pay for protein powder yet.
Okay. So that's your, are you considering that your drink or your food?
My food.
Okay, what would your drink be?
He lives on protein powder.
Excuse me.
Probably body armor. The drink.
Body armor.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Body armor drinks. Yes, I'd like to drink some body odor. No, just kidding. Alright.
Wet in a cup.
Alright, you've had all the time to think.
Savannah? One food, one drink in the fridge you would love filled up.
Mine's stupid.
Pickles.
Okay, I was gonna say
No.
either pickles or grapes.
Pickles or grapes, okay, for the food. What for the drink?
Milk.
Stop picking for her. Oh, okay.
Oh.
Dude, strawberry milk is so good. So underrated, but so good.
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee. That's a good choice. Travis, one food, one drink.
You're so white.
Probably Dr. Pepper cream soda.
That's good.
What's the frizzy thing?
Okay, so the drink, Dr. Pepper, cream soda.
About the food. Probably my mom's meatloaf.
Mom's meatloaf. Okay. I think I would,
Mom's meatloaf is
That was
really
the
good.
Travis thing.
so for drink, I would go with just regular Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper cream
I
soda is
like
pretty
Dr.
good.
Pepper a lot, but I like cream soda.
I think I would go with Dr. Pepper and then food. Don't judge me on this, but packets of shredded mozzarella cheese. Just eat mozzarella cheese all the time.
Don't judge.
Why not? No, but why do I like the sticks of it?
I don't know. There's something just better about like it shredded and just pulling it out of the bat. I don't know. I like it.
Just taking a shot like cheese.
What's that?
That's my brother.
Yeah?
He loves his mozzarella.
If dieting wasn't a thing, getting jacked wasn't a thing, like in heaven, then yeah, I'd probably do Dr. Pepper and like something like that.
Okay. Alright, let's move on to the next one then. Think of the word filled. So close your eyes for a second.
Filled?
Filled.
Oh,
Just-
I thought you were saying like, I don't know.
no, filled. F-I-L-L-E-D. So close your eyes. Think of the word filled for a minute. Alright? Now when I say the word filled, what images come to your mind? What images come to your mind or visuals? Like what is something that gets filled or doesn't get filled? Go.
Personally, I didn't see anything. What my mind thought of was literally just the letter F. Because
Okay.
I started with that, or the word.
Okay.
I didn't come up with them.
Okay.
Look at beans, man.
Filled beans? Beans?
Beans, man.
Beans? Okay.
Ryan got beat.
Filled beans? Savannah?
What? No, that's weird. That's weird.
What? You got a beans too?
No. What? That's so
I
weird.
had the voice crack. What?
So a can of filled beans. Okay. Moving on. I just think of filled water being filled. You know, a bottle of water filled.
Like what we're gonna do in World Surf.
Yeah, exactly. Filling a well. Exactly.
Practicing for Sunday.
There you go.
I'm gonna tell you, the kids, when they come up, that's helpful because then the parents come. They're like, come on, let's go put that back. And then I end up getting to tell them and they're like, alright, I'll buy it.
There you go.
So,
Alright, so this one's a little bit more serious question. Tell us a time when you really screwed up and yet someone was gracious to you in spite of something stupid you did. Like they lovingly worked with you in spite of the fact that you maybe could have crashed the family car, lost their iPod or phone, said something hurtful, forgot to study for a test and got to take it a day later without penalty, scoring a goal against your own team, things like that. So, I know for me, one of the gracious things actually, it was that very first one when I crashed the family car. It was 6 months after I got my license and I was at a stop sign and I couldn't see because the cars were on the main road in that. And so I'm like they were parked on the main road. I'm trying to look up and see around them and from what I saw, it looked like I was okay. So I started going and a guy like sideswipes me and turns the car around. And I thought like I was gonna get chewed out by my parents and that. Excuse me. But graciously, they did not chew me out for it and they were just more concerned and happy that I didn't get hurt. And they kept saying a car can be replaced and a person can't. So, yeah. So, how about you guys? Anything you can think of?
You know the one I talked with you in the car about?
Yeah.
That I'm not going to say on the recording, but that one.
Okay. Yeah. Travis or Savannah?
The only thing I could think about was literally what happened yesterday, but wasn't anything super big at all.
Good.
We were playing Ark.
Okay.
No, I think it was Monday.
Yesterday was Monday.
Yesterday. Sorry, my week's messed up.
Travis, I was pretty needy for that.
So I accidentally jumped off with a monkey.
It was a special monkey to me.
Very special monkey.
monkey.
Because I didn't know the jumping mechanics, because I'm still somewhat new to it, and I didn't know the jumping mechanics with it. So I was really like scared that I was gonna have it die, because then the server would have to be switched to go get another one and stuff. And so Joe helped me bring it back up.
Oh, I think I was like, I was not very gracious. I mean,
Well, you were gracious at the end.
Yeah, when I said sorry, but I was kind of a jerk at the start.
That's the first thing that came to mind, but like,
Okay.
It'll give me a minute to think about something.
That's good. Savannah, anything?
I don't really want to say mine.
You don't want to say it? Okay, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. All right, next one. Would you describe your family as a filled with grace family? Why or why not?
Yeah, because, what was it, my mom. So I'm not super good at reading women sometimes. Like, to me, sometimes I can't tell people's emotions. And, like sometimes I'll tell a joke when, like, it's actually kind of a serious matter. And, sometimes I just don't know when to stop. It's just hard. Personally, I can't, it's hard for me to read the room. So my mom, we were playing a game, and I was just getting I wasn't reading the room well. And so my mom, instead of getting frustrated at me, she helped me, telling me, well, you don't want to do this. So, my mom will help me with that. So.
Okay.
Because it's hard for me. I can't tell sometimes if the joke's funny or
not funny.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if it's, it's just hard for me to sometimes read the room like that.
Okay. Ryan or Savannah? Excuse me.
I would say not as much.
As much?
Yeah.
Okay, why not?
At least my intermediate family. My dad's side is pretty religious. I don't know. I feel like when I mess up, sometimes my mom gets a little bit more mad at me and not forgiving.
It's fair. Savannah?
I'd say mine is.
Yours are more gracious? Phil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my family likes to talk about things, especially my mom. If something is bothering me or something happened, she'll talk through it with me. She won't get mad at me about stuff.
Right, so she actually hears you out before jumping to conclusions.
She listens.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Okay, last thing. So today we're going to talk about, like I said, being filled with grace when we're leading our small groups. So in your own words, what does that mean to you, and why is it important to be filled with grace? So in your own words, what does it mean to be filled with grace, and why is that important as a small group leader?
I don't know. I mean, can't really think much over it other than you're rather forgiving. I don't know. I think the best way to put it is just you have forgiveness like Jesus, I guess you could say. I mean, because that is our prime example.
Yeah.
And forgiving us for all our sins. I feel like that's the best way. That's the best example that I really can use.
Okay. That's good. Savannah or Travis? If you don't have anything, it's okay. Just asking.
I might need a little more time to think.
I would say it's definitely important, especially in younger groups. I feel like in senior high, maybe it depends on people are in the faith, but I would say the majority of people, at least in my group, we're more mature in our faith. We become more sinless, I guess you could say. in younger groups because we're further in our journey. And, we're further in our walk. So I feel like it's really important in younger groups. So with Travis, I feel like you're already pretty gracious, so you're probably not going to struggle with it too much. But I mean, if you're having people that are, I don't know, saying like, for me, it was like trash talking when I was in junior high.
Mm-hmm.
I would get called out for it, and I wouldn't get like yelled at that. I'd get confronted.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't get like scolded for it.
Right.
And especially when people knew that I was trying to improve on it.
Right.
I wasn't being scolded.
Right. And I like actually what you're saying there, because I think sometimes, and I agree with what it means to be gracious, is that you don't expect where you are on a maturity level to automatically assume that's exactly how that person's going to be, right? Because that's an unloving thing to do, because for me to expect you guys, just in my journey, to be as mature as I am, I have, what's the youngest person in here? 12? 13?
I turned 13 in February.
13. So I've got 17 years on you, right?
I am a teenager now.
17 years on you. So for me to expect you to act like me, who's got 17 years of life experience in that, that's nonsense, right? And being gracious at times is like, I'll be honest, like I've thought through this definitely from time to time. If one of you guys do something that I remember doing as a teenager, be like, all right, you've made this stupid mistake too, right? Or this silly thing too. And so like, there are times where you're just like, they're acting like a teenager, not hurting anyone. It's no big deal, right? But there are also times where you have to come in a loving way, like you shared with Ryan. If you're trash talking or something like that, someone would come to you and say, hey, I saw you were doing this. Let me tell you why we don't do this, right? So it's good. So with that, let's turn to Proverbs chapter 22. Proverbs chapter 22, and we're going to just look at verse 11. If anyone wants to take that.
Verse 11, you said?
Yes, from Proverbs 22, verse 11.
Proverbs, Old Testament?
Yes, it is.
Proverbs says after Psalms.
Do you have the same Bible as
Oh.
like the youth group?
Let's go.
Proverbs 22, verse 11.
Anyone reading it? Any volunteers?
I'll read this one, all right? The one who loves a pure heart and gracious lips, the king is his friend. Now that's the CSB version I have. Anyone else? You guys all have CSB right now? Or
I do.
do you have a different version? Or
Yes, I do. Oh.
ESV? Can you read the ESV version?
He who loves purity of heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king as his friend.
Okay. So I like that where it says, speaks with a gracious heart. So, what do you mean, what do you think that means for someone to speak with a gracious heart? Or to speak with grace?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What do you think it means to you to be someone who speaks with grace? Or that the way that you speak is gracious?
I would say maintaining a loving tone.
Okay.
Definitely an important part.
Yeah.
I do not do too great. A lot of the time, still working on it. I think that's like one of the very important things. And also just coming with a good word choice. You can't come with a word choice that has a recognized meaning of condemnation.
Yeah. That's good. Awesome.
Yeah, I was
Try.
going to say, like, choosing how you speak, like, you want to think and make sure what's coming out of your mouth isn't either like aggressive or you want to make it kind of like it says gracious. You want to like when you talk to them, you don't want to like school them. You want to teach them how they could do it differently.
Right.
Instead of just, hey, let me just yell at you because you did something wrong.
Right.
You want to take
Exactly.
that opportunity to teach them
Right.
what they did wrong.
Right, exactly. I don't know about you, but I know growing up in my life, there are times if I've done something wrong, instead of someone using that as a teachable moment, they would come out of anger and frustration and say things that they would regret later on. And I love what you said there, and Ryan was alluding to it too as well. Like, you think about what you're about to say before you actually say it, right? So that's really good. Anyone else want to add anything to it, or?
Wasn't there, what was that verse? It's like, I don't know, it just feels like it was like, I don't know, there was a verse that felt like really similar to, like, think before you speak. I forget what verse that was.
Well, we're going to be going through quite a few verses on what it means to be gracious, so maybe it will come up and see what it is. All right. So let's play a situation game here. All right, about this. So here's the situation. You have a friend who goes to church with you and is in your small group. You're probably going to have some friends in your small groups, okay? Just to let you know. You know them and you value them. But you hear from Jill, pretend we have a Jill in your small group, okay? Pretend you hear from Jill that your friend is saying things about you that are not true. You feel hurt by this gossip and don't think it's how friends should relate to each other. How could you respond to this person as one who speaks with grace? So,
It'll probably, I can start.
Yeah.
I'd probably have to pull myself together before I'd go and like, say something. Because sometimes, like, I have anger issues. I've just learned to deal with them. People who, like, spend a lot of time with me, like, even at school, like, sometimes it's hard for me to control. But most of the time, like, at youth, I can handle it and stuff. But, like, sometimes I'm going to need to pull myself together before, like I said, I don't want to scold them. I want to teach them from that moment.
Right.
Because, to me, first, you don't want to completely disregard any friendship, because then that would be you, instead of, like, you can use that experience to try and almost, like, say, this isn't right, let me show you God tells us to do this. You can bring them from that, not disregard all friendship, like, get at them and then just...
Right. So try to actually make sure not to damage the relationship anymore, but actually resolve the conflict.
Be the one with the Band-Aid to patch it back together, not be the one to run away.
Right. Run away or even make the wound. Yeah, no, that's good.
Because I feel like if you're sorry.
No, you're fine.
If you're, like, going and you already, like, if you just yell at them and then walk away, that's like there's a cut and it's bleeding and you just cut the wound open even more to let more blood stop out.
That's good. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Travis. I would definitely say, like, yeah, don't, say if it's at youth group and you hear this at youth group while these people are here, I wouldn't talk to them. If it was like if it was at the start of the night, then maybe you could talk to them at the end of the night. Like, you're really gonna have to prepare yourself, especially for confronting gossip. If it was confronting, I don't know, something like trash talking or something like that, I feel like that's a bit easier. When it's something like gossip, the person's trying to avoid you about that topic. Not essentially avoid you in general, just avoid you about that topic because they don't want you to know about it because gossip.
Right.
So you're gonna have to probably, like, prepare your word choice really well, and you're gonna have to come with a lot of, like, recognition, but you're also really gonna have to, like, explain, this is how I feel about this. You're really gonna have to show, like, why it's wrong, because especially something like gossip, I mean, it's something
Right.
really hard to deal with.
Can I say one more thing? I would probably also ask a youth leader, if it was something like Ryan said, if it was trash talk, I feel like you could kind of address it, but like if it was something like bad gossip, I probably would like take it, make sure I don't come off when I talk to the youth leader angry, like aggressive stuff. And so I would probably talk to youth leaders most of the time about like, how should I approach this? How should I handle this? Like, I don't want to cut open that wound, but I don't want to ignore it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Savannah, anything you want to add to it?
I agree with both of them. Like, trying not to let anger get the best of you in this situation.
Right, and that's one of the things that can be really hard right away when, whether it's gossip or something else happens, and the very first emotion is like anger, right? Or frustrated, or even hurt. You're like, what's going on here? And so, one of the things that has always helped me, to deal with it, because I'm someone who thinks a lot, like I think through a lot of things. So let's hypothetically say I find out Travis is gossiping about me. Right? You falling asleep there? You okay?
Sorry, no, just bothering me. I'm really tired.
You okay?
I'm still listening.
All right. Do you need eye drops or anything? Or?
I'm good.
Okay. So let's hypothetically say Travis is gossiping about me, right? And I'm hurt by that. I'm angry and things like that. One of the things I would do is I would get a piece of paper and I would start writing, I am hurt. And then I would say, because I heard that Travis said something mean about me. Okay, and then I'd ask the question, okay, well, why do I feel hurt about this? Well, I feel hurt about this because I thought he was my friend. Okay, and then dig a little bit deeper on it, right? And then the next thing I would do is with a witness who wasn't necessarily involved with the conversation, not a witness who was involved in the conversation, but someone just to be there to be a middle person within the conversation. Yeah, exactly. I would approach Travis and say something to the fact like, hey Travis, I heard you said this. Now I know we're friends and I don't really think that would happen, but I need to ask, is this true? And then hopefully that can get a dialogue conversation going and I can share why I feel hurt by it and then try to figure out from Travis why he said what he said, right? But here's the key thing, anytime you're trying to address something with someone, and this is a good way of speaking graciously. One of the things I would encourage you is you have to watch your tone with how you approach someone, right? So if I just go to Travis and say, Travis, I heard you said these mean things about me. How dare you? Is this true? Does that come out loving? Sorry to those who are listening on audio recording too, if that makes you jump too. Right, it would scare you. You'd be like, what? Savannah would be like, what is going on? Or let's say Savannah was down the hallway here and she heard me yelling, you'd be like, there's a fight about to break out, right? But if but if I come to him in a tone of compassion and trying to understand, because if I'm trying to understand why he said what he said, maybe there's something that I did that I didn't know, right? So anytime there's a situation or a conflict, one of the best things that we can always learn to do, identify why we're hurt, but then try to put ourselves in the other person's shoe and try to figure out, okay, well, why are they, because them hurting me means they're hurt about something. There's the old saying, hurting people hurt people. Right? So if Travis is mad at me about something, well then he's going to go around and hurt me maybe by gossiping or talking bad on me or something like that. And so the idea is, okay, figure out why I feel the way I do. All right, now I need to have a conversation with Travis and say, Travis, did I do anything wrong? Is there a reason why you're going around and saying I'm the worst youth pastor ever? And then so with that. Any questions? That makes sense so far at this point?
I just thought of something.
Yes.
What if that person who told you that your friend was saying that was completely just straight up lying?
Well, then you confront the person. Yeah, then you confront the person who was lying and be like, why would you make up a lie like that?
That would probably make me more.
Yeah. All right, let's turn to Ephesians chapter 2. We're going to look at verses 4 through 10. Verses 4 through 10.
Sorry, chapter.
Chapter 2, Ephesians chapter 2.
Verses
4 through 10.
I can read.
Okay.
However, if you want to split.
You can read it all. We have plenty of other verses we're going to go through here.
But God, who is rich in mercy, because of his great love that he had for us, made us alive with Christ, even though we were dead in trespasses. You are saved by grace. He also raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavens in Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might display the immeasurable riches of his grace through the kindness grace through his kindness to us in Christ Jesus. For you are saved by grace through faith, and this is not from yourself, it is God's gift, not from works, so that no one can boast. For we are all his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do.
All right, so let's think about the phrase that we just heard. You have been saved by grace. So when we read that verse, you have been saved by grace, what does it mean, and why is it so important to get or understand as a believer? Why is it important for us to understand what it means that you are saved by grace? So what is it, and why is it so important to really know that, not just as a head knowledge, but within your heart, and believing that as well? Travis.
So after this, can I quickly go to Matthew?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So if you think about it, so like how we just showed them grace with that whole situation that we just went over, God didn't really have to take that time. Oh, you're ready to know me? All these sins you've done, all these bad things, you've blamed me, all that, you're ready. Like, you're good to go. Because, like, he doesn't have to let me try and think about how I want to handle this. Nope. Forgive you.
Right. He's the Son of God. He's perfect. So he knows how to.
And if he ever does get angry, it's an indignation. So.
Very good. Go ahead.
So this is my study Bible, and I really like this. It's obviously like Christ dying on the cross for us. It says in my Bible, it said God's free favor toward ill-deserving people. That's what the death of Jesus Christ was, and the resurrection. You know, we definitely didn't deserve it. We did nothing to deserve it.
Right. We actually deserve eternal punishment.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely did. Through sin, you know, in the beginning, for sin. So yeah, it's just a gift, a free gift, to us as people who don't deserve it.
Amen. All right. Well, let's come back to this now that everyone is back. All right. So we just talked about why it's important for us to understand grace. So again, in the text, it says that we don't earn grace. Like we don't earn grace. It's a free gift from God. Yet it also says that God has good work for us to do. So how do these two things work together? And what's the difference? And this is really key. What is the difference between working for God and trying to earn God's approval? So what's the difference of working for God and trying to earn God's approval? Ryan.
When you're working for God, you're seeking Him with a heart already being saved. And when you're trying to seek approval from God, you're seeking with a heart when you're not saved. And you're also maybe doing it with pride.
Okay. That's good answer. Good answer. Trap?
I agree.
Savannah? All right. We all agree. Yeah, no, exactly. And this is something I grew up in as a kid, thinking that I had to earn my salvation. That all my good works had to outweigh all my bad works, and God approved me based off that. and he delighted in that versus that he delights in me for who I am. Right? He loves me for who I am. He knows me for who I am, and that there's not an amount of work that I can do that he'll be like, all right, that allows you to enter heaven. No, it's only the work of Jesus Christ on the cross that allows us to have eternal salvation with him. So this text says that we are not to boast about what we've done, but rather what God has done for us. How can you tell if you have a humble gratitude or a false humility?
What?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, how can you tell, and so this might be new to you guys, how can you tell if you have a humble attitude or a false humility?
Okay. I think on this one here.
Yeah, a humble attitude or a humble gratitude or a false humility.
When you say you're humble.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Right.
You just got that in 4 words. I mean, I don't even know if you knew much more than that.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say.
Like, this kid, not humble at all. So I came up to the teacher, I'm like, he actually is pretty humble. He told me himself. Pretty good job.
Right, yeah.
I literally came up with that last year.
Yeah, that's
if you say, now listen, sorry, that was sound. But like, if you're like, I can be humble sometimes, it's not like, oh, that means you're not humble sometimes. It's like, or if you're like, yeah, I'm humble.
That statement alone shows that you're not acting in humility, right?
Yeah, sometimes like it's hard for me, like even like I am surprised when people are like, I'll match up to $70,000, but it's anonymous. Like I'm like, because sometimes I'm like, why don't you take the credit? Like sometimes that's what I struggle with. Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get better at that.
So that's a great point. So, right, we have someone within the church after the Easter offering would match up to $75,000, and they're going to, and so the giving money that's going towards the Dream Center in Philly is now going to be about $180,000 with the match, right? But the people who are matching up to $75,000 don't want them to know. Doesn't want anyone to know. Like, I don't even know on staff. They approach only Pastor John and Teresa know. I don't know who it is on staff.
Wait, it was the staff?
No, I don't know.
Oh,
no,
like no one on the staff.
No one on the staff, but John and Teresa know who, unless someone else was in that meeting with John and Teresa. But from my knowledge, it's only John and Teresa who knows who matched it. So that's
a lot of humility to do that.
Right.
Especially with that big, like when
so,
we were donating a project rescue, he's $1,000.
Yeah.
That's pretty big, but like $75,000.
Yeah. So what do you think it takes to get from that, though? To go from to have a humble attitude, or to start off, to have a false humility, or someone who always wants the credit in that, to being humble and saying, people don't need to know that I matched it. People don't need to know.
Working for God.
That's good. I understand. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, you put it pretty good, dude. What was I just about to say? I think the point of it is you may be saved, but you may also have pride in your heart. So you have to go to a point of not being a people pleaser. You just want to please God.
Right.
I wish I was like my dad like that. Like you could tell the most embarrassing story about him, he wouldn't give a crap. I wish I was like him like that. Like some things like that would stress me out. But with the part of the stress that I'm not able to control right now, other than to try and kick that out. Yeah. Like if I did something really embarrassing in a lot of people, I'd feel a little bit of that.
Right.
But like if it's something dumb, I kind of gotten it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this humble attitude versus a false humility, it's something we all have to ask the Lord to help us work through. I know even for me, this is something that He continues to work on me. I actually had a really bad case early on, and still sometimes, of a false humility. So this is what my false humility would look like. Anytime I would preach, whether it's on a Wednesday or a Sunday, especially early on when I wasn't preaching as much on Sundays, people would come up to me and say like, "Oh, you did a great job. That was a great message," and everything like that. Instead of just saying thank you, I would be like, "Nah, it wasn't that great." I'd say, "I made these mistakes and I can do better," and things like that. And while that looks like I'm being humble, it's actually a false sense of humility, because I'm really more insecure about how I looked on stage or how I sounded on stage versus just simply saying thank you, right? Saying thank you and all praise to Jesus. That's kind of my thing now, to say like thank you and all glory is to Jesus, because he's the only one that can get me to do that. Go ahead, Trav.
Something I did do was like with the Quaker Town. I did Quaker Town read because I didn't want to do because that's part of, because to me if I did that, then that would give me a false sense of pride. When really, my dad did most of the work. I didn't do it. I did some of it, but like he did most of it.
Yeah, so you want to make sure there's credit on both sides. So.
Yes, that's why I just did Quaker Town because we wouldn't have gotten money without people donating. It's like there's multiple moms dropped like $50 for
praise God for it. So. Okay, last question with this Ephesians, and then we're going to go to 1st and 2nd Corinthians. What do you think is the opposite of grace?
No mercy. Or no grace.
Okay, no grace, yes.
I mean, the opposite of grace means, so like, I forget, it was showing the difference between grace and mercy. Like, I remember it was like one of the first weeks before we started using upstairs again from COVID. I was remembering, and you put up a slide, and I'm trying to remember what that was.
I did? Or?
Whatever the slide showed. That's when you had that little like iPad TV next to you. Like
yeah.
Like when we were in the sanctuary, when we were selling Mark. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. But anyways, awesome. Blanking. Someone else can go if they have something so I'm not holding.
I would say mercy, but I don't know. Because I don't think so. Because
grace and mercy are two different things. They're not opposite of each other.
They're usually both still positive connotations.
Yes, agree.
So
they're both.
That's why it's wrong. I don't really know what else to say other than like not being forgiven.
It'd be like how when you're giving someone grace, you're almost like, I don't know what's the word for like giving no chance and like scolding. Or just like when someone gives you grace, like if you make a mistake, here let's try again. They'll help you. They'll give you that second chance. But like if you scold them and don't give them another chance, it's just kind of like, what am I supposed to do?
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this question. What does it look like when someone doesn't have grace or is graceless?
I know if like you're using something really expensive and you almost break it or something, you don't want to, they're probably not going to let you do that again.
Right.
It might be thousands of dollars or something like that.
Right.
And they don't have the money to replace it or the insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you, like, some families would be like, you crashed my car, you ain't allowing it, and you ain't allowing the car, so you have the money to buy me a new one.
Right. Yeah. They don't view it as like, oh, this was a legit accident. You weren't trying to do it on purpose. That actually reminds me of a funny story, which happened last Friday, actually. Rachel and I were at a outdoor yard sale because we're trying to get some stuff for the new home and everything like that.
Is it by Nichols?
No, this was down in Percy.
I saw a yard sale like a few days ago.
Gotcha. So no, this was in Percy. And so there wasn't enough room for us to park in the parking garage that they had and everything, so we parked on the side of the road. Now, it rained the night before, so there's some mud there, right? So we do our shopping and whatever, and then we come back, and then there's a car that's parked not right behind us, but they're behind us, right? And I see the woman getting out of her car, and she's walking by, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go until I know she walks by, because I know there's some mud underneath, and I don't want to get her muddy, right? So she walks by, she's out of the clear, and I'm like, okay. So I put the truck in drive and go, and it took a little bit, because it was a little bit in mud, and the four-wheel drive was kicking in, and I got out. But then all of a sudden, Rachel and I hear, because our windows were down, my car!
Oh, you speed mud all over it.
Her whole front end of her car was covered in mud.
Yeah, that's her fault.
Alright, that's not the point of the story. We're not trying to get any fault, right? She's all covered in the cold, not her. The front end of the car is covered in mud. And so I need to, I'm on the road, but I need to turn around and come back because I don't want to cause an accident on the main road or whatever. So Rachel gets out of the car and she goes running to the woman and she's like, I'm sorry, that was an accident or everything like that. Here's $20 to help, go pay to get your car washed and that. We're sorry, that was a complete accident. And the woman would not give any grace to Rachel. The woman was very mean to Rachel, to the point that people were having the yard sale, came to Rachel to make sure she was okay, because when Rachel got back in the truck, when I turned around and that, Rachel was actually in tears a little bit, because she didn't like the conflict that was happening, because it was a legit accident. We weren't just you know what, there's a car behind us, I'm just gonna kick it in drive and get that all.
Would be, let me go out and kick
right.
your butt.
Right, but here's the thing. And Rachel and I talked about it when we were continuing our drive to other places. We had to find grace for that woman in that moment, because my bet is she wasn't upset about the car being muddy. My guess is there's something deeper going on, or some type of conflict or issue going on within her family or something, that unfortunately us getting her car muddy was the tip of the iceberg, where it just set her off. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've ever encountered people who again, small accident, and they just freak out over the littlest things, and 9 times out of 10 it's usually because there's a bigger issue going on in their own life, and that's where you have to learn to be gracious with them and be like, hey, is everything okay at home? And maybe be able to have a conversation with that. Travis.
Now, I'm trying to remember, because this was a long time ago, but in elementary school, one of our, the aides, screamed at me. I'm, yelled, the whole cafeteria was just staring at me and the aide.
Mm-hmm.
Because, she really just got out, she got really mad. And so, I ended up telling my mom and all that. She ended up, telling the principal. And she's now, trying to remember, because this was all the way back in, first grade.
Mm-hmm.
First grade Travis is trying to pull memories. I'm pretty sure Mom was like, it's fine, I just don't want this to happen again. Mm-hmm. Instead of, because when your first grade child is being screamed at by an aide because he took a little too long in the bathroom, because I was trying to pull myself together, because in first grade I would literally cry on the drive to school. I'd throw up somewhere and start gagging. Nurse had to send me home multiple times because I was gagging, almost throwing up, I would puke a little bit because I was so nervous. And when that happened, I had to sit in the bathroom and pull myself together for 10 minutes. So she ended up yelling at me because I took too long.
Yeah, and she didn't find the time to seek to understand what was going on.
And so, Mom, that's why my parents have taught me this from day one. You don't get frustrated at other people. You don't know exactly what they're going through and how their life is looking right now. Yeah. It's that's why when some people, even at school, are really mad. I just know.
Absolutely. So at the end, of this training, there's a covenant that you guys are going to be signing. and under part of the covenant, it's called filled by grace. And I just want to read the paragraph to you, and then I have a question about it. It goes like this. I know that being part of this small group will require time, patience, love, and forgiveness. I'm going to give the same grace and forgiveness to others that I would want for me. We're all in process. I'm not in this group to be judgmental, but rather to affirm and encourage my peers to become who Jesus made us to be. Why is this important for our small groups to be like this? On that covenant. Why is it important for our small groups to be like this? And what would happen if we took God's grace out of our conversations as a small group?
Because we want people, we want to promote growth. We don't want to, want to make something negative. We want to represent Christ, and we want to represent the love of Christ. And if we're not representing the love of Christ, then it's not really going to promote growth for them.
Exactly. That's huge. We want to be able to help people grow and mature in their faith, not be it our fault to see them hinder. We don't want to ever hinder their growth. That's good, Ryan. That's very good. Travis or Savannah?
I agree, but...
I agree.
I don't know, it's not very informative, but...
You agree? Okay. One of the things that I was one of the things I was thinking about, actually, Savannah, was something that you said last week, that I think this can really help your small groups, is that you want it to be a safe area where people don't judge you for maybe some things that you struggle with, right? And if you can create an environment where it is filled by grace and tell people like, hey, anything that's shared in this group stays in this group. We pray for this person. We don't go back and start gossiping about, oh my gosh, did you hear that Ryan said he struggles with this or Travis struggles with it, right? Like, right? And that's where grace comes in and being patient, right? And lately this chapter in in the book of John keeps coming up, but John chapter 4. And if you don't know the story, I encourage you to go read it tonight. It's John chapter 4 and the conversation Jesus has with the Samaritan woman.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And Jesus had a lot of grace with her and patient with her, and he didn't condemn her for what, about her husbands and then she having a boyfriend. He already knew this. And she was already being condemned by her own sin in her heart in that. But Jesus had a love and compassion in showing her, listen, I know you're hurting. I know you want something different in your life. Your soul is thirsty for something else. And I'm here to tell you, I'm the Messiah that's going to be able to give your soul that water that it longs for.
Yeah.
So.
One of my dreams is just for more people to branch out and get accountability for certain struggles or addictions. Because I know the pain and I know the struggle that is in an addiction, and I know that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of boldness, and it takes a lot of grace from others to just talk to someone about it. And I'm not going to get into total detail because that's personal stuff to me. But the person who I told, they just showed me, they just showed me a lot of grace around my first year and a half, something like that I was there. And that's what really made it the stepping stone to reach out. And there's probably someone within the youth group that is struggling with an addiction right now. And I think all of us want people to experience the freedom that we do as believers.
Amen. Thanks for sharing, man. All right. Let's end with these two verses. Can someone go to 1 Corinthians 16, verse 14? So 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 14. And then 2 Corinthians 13, 14. okay?
Oh, nothing, yeah. Dude, I broke my one toe, and now it's like...
1 Corinthians 16:14.
Mr. Pastor, this toe that I broke, you can like get the bone, and once it goes back, you can like go down, and then it can literally like split up and like shoots up and makes this really loud clop, like sometimes. It's really weird.
That does sound weird.
Yeah, the bone just got messed up.
Sorry. 1 Corinthians, 16 verse 14.
Oh, I was just looking at chapter 15, chapter 15. It's 58 verses, man. It's going to take me 2 days. Or 2 sessions.
Savannah, do you mind reading that verse for us? Are you in 2 Corinthians? Alright, you can do 2 Corinthians then for us. It says to me 13:14. Do you have a verse 14? Yeah. Okay, mine doesn't. That's weird.
Your Bible does not have a verse 14.
It says, I think it combines 13 and 14 and just makes it 13. Yeah, with the version, so. Alright, so Ryan, you'll do 1 Corinthians 16:14.
Oh man. Can you just give me a second to prepare for this verse? Do everything in love.
There you go. Savannah.
The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.
Amen. Amen. So we'll close with this. I encourage you guys to use these verses to affirm the truth about your group. Perhaps you use them as a way to speak grace or a benediction over your small group at the end of your prayer time. Maybe even read these words together while in a circle or arm in arm. And so the point of these are, maybe you open up your small group with these verses and say, hey guys, as we go into a time of small group and talk about the message and the sermons and things like that, we want you to know that in our conversations, we are going to do this in love based off of 1 Corinthians 16:14, and that, and 2 Corinthians 13:14, that the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all, meaning that what's shared here, again, stays here. We're not going to judge. We're not going to condemn. And you know, when we say not judge, and hold on, Travis, one of the things, like, when we say that, people automatically think verbally. But I'm going to encourage you guys as leaders not to just be careful verbally, but what your expressions say as well. Because your body language shares more than what your verbal actually does. So let me give you an example. Like, so if someone were to say something in your small group that's really shocking, that's something they struggle with, right? Let's just say they struggle with something, and let's say I'm in Travis's small group and I share that, right? And Travis does exactly that. Look at that. His head's back, the eyes are like that. What do you think that communicates to me? Or if someone in your group saw you do that, what do you think that communicates?
Oh crap, this isn't good. No one else does this.
Right, okay, so that's one way of putting it, right? Anyone else?
It's just kind of like, feels like that's where you would put one of those like to be continued arrows. Something bad happens.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it would feel like, oh, I just spilled the beans on this, and he's so spilled them, not filled them, spilled them.
Filled beans.
Yes. But I was being vulnerable in this moment, but now their facial look like that gasp and whatever. And you as leaders have to learn to control this. You know, you gotta learn to control that facial expression when someone shares something. Because everyone else in the small group is gonna react the way you react. Right?
So you go like a little circle?
Well, no, seriously, that's what's gonna happen, because people will, there's an old phrase that goes like this. People will do 100% of the things that you do wrong, but only 50% of the things that you do right. Meaning it's in our sinful nature to always want to lean towards doing the evil, sinful thing. So being judgmental in a way that doesn't show compassion or anything. So if I were to say to Travis, I was telling him to sin and Travis does that look, and because you all see him as the leader doing that, you all go like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just shared that, right? In a sense. But you gotta be able to lead your group in saying, hey, thanks for sharing that. I know that probably took a lot of guts. It took a lot of courage for you to share what you're struggling with. But we want to let you know, brother. We want to let you know, sister. We're going to pray for you now, and we're going to believe that the Lord will help you overcome X, Y, and Z. Does that make sense? Do you see how that has a gracious attitude in your small group versus a condemning culture in your small group?